Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller. I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Todd Talk. Today we're going to talk about balance and how difficult it can be to balance things in your life and bring yourself to a place where you don't feel like you're stuck and you don't feel like you're not making any forward progress. A lot of people have asked me questions about when I was so busy and had so many things on my plate, how on earth I balanced things and what that looked like. And so to start with, I started at a place of being very unbalanced and in a place where I couldn't make any forward momentum, and I felt like I was stuck and nothing was ever going to be right again in the world of making forward progress. But so when I talk to people about this and I try to answer the question, I tend to use the analogy of a boat. Most people have very different experiences, and so it's difficult to try to give advice or share thoughts on every single specific situation. So I found that if I give this analogy of being in a boat and trying to worry about the balance, that it tends to resonate pretty well with people and give them a better idea of what they can do to help put it forward and put it to use in their own life without me being hyper-specific. In the grand scheme of my own life, there are certain things that I did that I was specifically committed to and had obligation to, and that's obviously not the same for every single person. So one of the things that I think is helpful is giving them the idea and the perspective of this overall balanced boat analogy and letting them apply it to their life however they can. So we're going to do that, and we'll see what that looks like. So first things first, the backside of this we call the ABCs. In this case, it's going to be analyze, balance, and control. You need to analyze your life, and then you need to balance your life, and then you need to control your life. And not necessarily your life in general, but you need to analyze what's making you busy or what's taking up your time. You need to balance those things accordingly with what you want to spend your time on. And then you need to control them going forward and make it a point to make sure you give yourself the opportunity to stay in that place where you feel better about things. So when it comes to the boat, I want you to imagine if you've ever been in a boat, big or small, it doesn't matter. Boats have to be balanced, otherwise they'll tip over. And if in your mind now you can use the analogy of a small boat, a rowboat, a canoe, that's typically easier than a super yacht. So if you think of the average canoe and you put your things in it and you and your family or you and your friends want to get in it, everybody has to sit kind of on a different side. If there's four of you, you sit across from each other, 2 and 2, and you keep things balanced. If you're going to bring things with you, picnic baskets, blankets, chairs, fishing gear, fishing poles, whatever, those have to go in the middle and the weight has to be spread out so it doesn't get too heavy on one side or the other. Your life is the same. And what I found was the more things you pile into your boat and the more things you try to bring with you, the harder it gets to find ways to balance them and spread them out so they're actually still okay for you to paddle forward. Now, if you pile too many things in the center of the boat, and then the 4 people that, the 3 people you're with, so there's 4 of you and a whole bunch of stuff, it's going to get really hard to paddle and really hard to move forward and really hard to turn and just really hard to make sure you don't tip or that things are going to stay balanced and where they're supposed to be and not get wet and fall overboard. Now, when you take all these things together, your obligations, your commitments, these are the things you're putting into your life that are taking up your time. And eventually you reach a point where you have too many things on your plate, or you can reach a time where you have too many things on your plate. And that's kind of where you say, well, I have enough time to do this, I think, but I don't feel like I can move forward and actually do the things I want or get to where I want to be or achieve the goals I want to achieve because I'm just using all my time to do other things for other people or to serve things and obligations and commitments that I don't actually want to do. And so you feel stuck. Now, the really compounding part of this comes in when you start to think about your service to other people as well. If you know me or follow me on social media, you will know that I am a giver and I have a servant's heart. And so one of the things that I love to do is serve other people. It brings me lots of joy. However, it took me a really long time to get to a place where I was doing it correctly and I was doing it without leaving myself burned out and overcommitted and unbalanced. And here's what that looks like. I had all this stuff in my boat. I had all these things going on in my life. I had all these commitments and obligations, and I was piled in. I have a family, and I had all these things on my plate, so my boat was pretty full. But I was making do. I had things balanced. I would spread them out. I made sure I didn't have meetings on the same night, but unfortunately that meant I had meetings every night. So you bring yourself to this place, and you say, well, I got a pretty full plate, but I'm okay, and that was me. I said, I'm okay, I'm managing. I'm balancing enough. The boat is not going to sink. But then I started looking at how much I served other people. And in the boat analogy that I talk to people about, it looks like if you're in your boat and you're headed across the lake to your favorite picnic spot with your family, all of a sudden you see another family of 4, and they're sad because there's a hole in their boat and they need help. So you paddle over and say, hey, come on, you can get in our boat. Now, this was my service to other people. I would say, oh, people need help with things. They need help with town events, with community events, with committees, with town boards, with involvement projects, with volunteerism. I can help. I will help people. And I invited people into my boat. Come on in. I'll help you. I can serve you. I got room. Well, unfortunately, the added weight of all of their stuff, plus the added weight of all of those people, plus all of my stuff and my commitments and my family, left me to a place where I was trying to dip my paddle very carefully and slowly into the water to paddle forward, and I wasn't getting anywhere. I would dip it to the left and just spin a little bit to the right and then pull it out and dip it in the water on the right and paddle and just turn a little bit back to the left. I was stuck. Now, the hard part about this is I could see where I wanted to get to in my lake or my pond of life. You know, I could see the sunny shore where I wanted to have a picnic with my family. I could see my goals. I could see my dreams and my hopes and the things I wanted to achieve. They were just right over there. I could see them. They were so close. But I couldn't get to them because I was stuck. I had no way to make any forward momentum or any forward progress. I had put so many things into my life and filled it up with so many commitments and obligations and all that kind of stuff that I had no space left to do anything else for myself to move myself forward. Now, the good news is it's not impossible to get to a place where you can paddle forward. The bad news is you can't have a knee-jerk reaction and just throw the other family's 9-year-old overboard because he looks like a good swimmer. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. So the way this works is you need to take a look at your life, and this is the A part, the analyze. You need to analyze what's in your life. What takes up most of your time? And don't look at it at the surface level. Don't say, well, I hate my day job because that takes up a lot of time, 8 hours a day, and I'd rather have that time back. Most of us have to work. We have to have a day job. Some of us have a day job and a part-time job, and that's okay. And at the surface, too, don't look and say, well, you know, I have to bring my kids to sports or I have to bring my kids to basketball practice or whatever that is, because that is also something that is important in your life. Family is super important. So those are kind of the necessary things. You know, that's like bringing your life jacket and the oars and the paddles with you in the boat. You need those. You know, those are the things you need to keep yourself safe in the boat and kind of move yourself forward. Now, if you don't want to bring anything else into your life, that's okay. If you want your boat to just be you, your family, the life jackets, and the oars, awesome. You can happily paddle wherever you want to go that way. But most of us have room for some other stuff. So when you do the analyze portion, look at the things that take up the time that you wish you could spend doing something else that don't bring you any joy, or that bring you very little joy, or that you feel resentment about. Resentment is a really difficult thing to look at because most of the time we could avoid it if we were a little more honest with ourselves. If someone says to you, hey, could you please help me with X, Y, Z? Or could you please come to this place? Or could you go shopping with me? Or could you do this for me? If you want to do it, awesome. Go ahead and do it. If you have time and energy, that's great. Serving people makes a lot of people happy, myself included. However, if someone says to you, hey, can you join this committee? Or can you come to this meeting? Or can you drive me to the mall? And you really don't want to, don't say yes. As soon as you say yes to something you don't actually want to do, the resentment is preloaded and ready to go. And as soon as you say yes, you already start dreading that thing you didn't want to do in the first place. So be honest with yourself and say, I don't want to do that. And be honest with the other person and say, no, thank you. You can be polite about it. But look at those type of things. Analyze the things in your life you have that take up a lot of time that you don't necessarily want to do or that you don't want to keep making time for. And those are the things you have to look at and figure out how to balance them. So that's the analyze part. Now, the balancing part comes in with what we talked about with the boat. Metaphorically, obviously, we're not actually paddling a boat across the lake, unless that's what you want to do with your freed up time, and in which case that's awesome. But balance the things in your life appropriately. You can't just say, well, I'll keep piling it all in and spreading it all out the best I can, because eventually you're going to reach a point where the boat's going to sink anyway. It will simply be too much stuff and it will be too heavy. So the commitments in your life are no different. We only have so much time in the day. We obviously can't add time to the day. We can't invent time. But if we use it correctly, we can get to a point where we feel like we are using our time well instead of running short on time every day. There's lots of phrases. I wish there was more hours in the day, more days in the week, weeks in the year, all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing it correctly and you're really consistent and really deliberate about what you want to spend your time on, it's possible to balance it. And here's what that looks like in the most broad terms I can give. High-level overview. You have a certain capacity for things you enjoy, and you have a certain capacity for things you love, and you have a certain capacity for things you tolerate but aren't crazy about. They can all live happily in your life as long as you make sure you are doing the appropriate amounts of each one. This starts by saying, what do I not want to do? Plain and simple. Make a list if you need to. For me, it was realizing that town boards and town committees had taken up so much time after my workday, in my evenings and my nights and my late afternoons, that I was losing out on time with my family and losing out on time I could be doing things I actually enjoyed to keep running to meetings all the time. So for me, it was resigning from 2 town boards the same day. I wrote 2 resignation letters the same day and proofread them and turned them in the following day. Effective immediately, I resigned from these 2 boards. And then also things that I liked, that I enjoyed, that I had capacity for, but didn't necessarily want to have as much commitment to, I changed those up a little bit. In the fire department and with my nonprofit, I gave the social media responsibility of all the pictures and posts and advertisements and flyers to someone else. All the website stuff with advertising and making sure, seeing if donations come in and writing thank you notes for those and all those kind of things, I gave to someone else. So I kept the same space in those 2 organizations. I'm still the deputy chief of the fire department. I'm still the president of the nonprofit, but I changed my role within them just a little bit to give myself a little more capacity for the things I wanted to do and actually had time to do now. And resigning from the 2 town boards, I was so nervous about, because I think a lot of us also worry about when we try to do these things and we try to step away from a commitment, people are going to be angry and mad and upset and, oh, how dare you leave? I'm not the only person in my town. There's other people who can help and who can kind of get through this stuff, and I had to remind myself of that a lot. So that's what the balancing looks like. Look at the things that take up your time, and remember it's okay to take some of those things off your plate, or if you don't want to take them off your plate entirely, change the way you interact with them. Maybe you step back a little bit. Maybe you say that you coach a sports team, but next year you're going to be the assistant coach because you enjoy the coaching, but you don't want it all to fall on you. Or maybe you don't like coaching at all, and you say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I coached soccer for my kids' soccer teams 3 different years, and I never enjoyed it. And so finally when they said, hey, do you want to coach soccer? I very simply said, no, thank you. I love watching my kids play soccer. I like going to the games. I love being competitive and cheering and all that kind of stuff. I love being involved in their soccer games and in their sports a lot, but I don't enjoy coaching. So I very simply said, no, thank you. Now, I still go to the soccer games. I'm still part of their soccer season and part of their soccer teams, but I do not have the responsibility and the commitment of being the coach. So the obligation looks a lot different now, and it makes me a lot happier, and it makes me feel a lot more balanced. So that's how we balance. That's the balancing act that happens. Look for those things in your life. Figure out which ones can go all together. Figure out which ones you want to stay, but maybe change your role in or change your level of obligation or commitment to. And then look at ones you want to stay. And now when you do this, part of the balancing also is figure out what you want to do and make time for that. and figure out what things you have not done for yourself lately that you want to make time for, that you will now have time for because you've given up some other things in your life. And that's kind of how you walk into balancing. Now, please remember, this does not all happen in one day. It does not all happen in the same 15-minute period. Sometimes it takes a week to figure out what you want to give up. Sometimes it takes an entire year. Every one of those is okay, and anything in between. Take the time to figure out what your balanced life looks like and what will serve you the best. And the good news is that this can change. You don't have to have the answer right now and listen to this and say, okay, I think I want to quit doing X, Y, and Z, and I want to start doing A, B, and C. Awesome. If you know that right off the bat, that's wonderful. Start working towards it. If you need some more time to figure out what that looks like, take all the time you need. This is not a road race. This is not a foot race. This is walking yourself into a place where you feel really good about yourself and really good about what you're doing with your time. Now, we've analyzed, we've balanced, we've made that list. The next step is to control it. And the control aspect means that what I did when I resigned from 2 town boards and kind of changed my role with the social media and the public outreach responsibilities within the fire department and the nonprofit was I freed up a lot of time for myself. And it felt really good. But the trap it's difficult to make sure you don't fall into is that when you have all this free time and more commitments come up and people say, hey, do you want to help me with this new thing or this new project, that you don't automatically just say, oh, you know what? I have a lot more free time now. Yeah, I'll do that. Make sure you don't do that. You need to control your level of commitment on the back end of things and make sure you are continually serving yourself by either saying no to new commitments or at least saying not now to those commitments. I think it's pretty easy to give up some things and make some more free time for yourself and be really happy and really excited and say, this feels great, I have so much more free time, and then all of a sudden realize that because you had free time, you think that you have time to just give to some other commitment and take on some new obligations, and you're right back to where you started before you can realize what happened. So that's the control part of it. Make sure you remember to say no to things. Make sure that before you agree to something, ask yourself if you actually want to do it. And there is no shame in this. I think we as adults especially, we put a lot of blame on ourselves and a lot of shame on ourselves, and we feel a lot of guilt when we have to say no to people. And that's really detrimental and difficult. And I am no exception. I would feel awful when I would tell someone I couldn't help. I would say, oh, well, let me figure it out, and I think I can help. And I would run myself in circles to try to figure out how to make space for it and how to make time for it and how to figure out how I could physically get there to help them do something or be part of their event or give them my time or my energy or my physical help, my hands, my whatever it was, my strength, But very quickly that turns into a place of giving up one thing to just take on another thing. So when you control these things, make sure you remember that you don't need to feel guilty about saying no. It's perfectly okay. We all have things we want to do, and we all have things we don't want to do. And be really open and honest about those. And I think it will be difficult at first. Well, I know it will be difficult at first because it's difficult to say no and to change the entire way you approach requests from people and when people ask you for help. But remember that it's a balanced life for you, not them. You're not working on their time. You're working on your own time. You're working on the things that you want to do. There is no rewind button. We don't get to do life over. We don't get to do it a second time. We don't get to the end of it and say, oh, you know what? I think next time I do this life, I'm going to do things different. Like, that's not a thing we can do. And you have to be really upfront and honest with yourself about that. So the control aspect is very simply keeping yourself in check and remaining in a place where you stay balanced and continually analyze what you're doing with your time. The other good news is this gets to change. What serves you best now probably won't serve you best in 3 or 4 years. If you have children and you're a parent and they're young, what they need from you and your level of commitment to them will look very different than it will when they're 19 years old or 20 years old and either off in college or off working or off living on their own, just because of the nature of children growing up and people getting older and time marching on and moving forward. So that's okay. So give yourself that grace too. When it comes to controlling, don't think that, this is the plan I have to make today and it has to work from now until forever. This is not a 50-year plan. This can be an every year plan. This can be a 6-month plan. You can look back however often you want to make yourself feel like you are doing what you want to do with your time. Serve yourself the best way you can by understanding that your time is very valuable and that serving other people is definitely okay. Hear me when I say that. If you follow me on social media or you know me at all, you will know I love to serve other people. I have been a volunteer since I was a kid. I joined the fire department as an Explorer member when I was 14 years old. I love to give back to my community. I love to help people. It makes my heart happy to give things to people, whether it's actual gifts that you buy at the store or gifts of my time or my help or my input on things. I love to give that to people. So I didn't stop doing that. I just made sure that along the way of serving other people, I also had time to serve myself. And that's a really important thing to do. And one last thought about this whole thing, this whole exercise, the ABCs, the analyze, the balance, and control, the taking the look at your life, the making sure your boat is not too full, that you can actually get to where you're going, is to remember that starting all of this will be difficult. So just start it. And the second part of that is know where you want to go and know where you want your aim to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be some super long, detailed 5-year plan or where you see yourself in 20 years, but aim at something and aim up and say, this is how I want to get to this place. I have a goal of doing X. I want to get there by being more mindful about my own time and analyzing and balancing and controlling the commitments and the things in my life, and then march yourself that way. Don't just say, well, I'm going to start chopping things off the list because I want more free time. Know what you want to use the free time for, because I think the more you invest in yourself and the more you start to think about the things you like and you love and you want to do, it'll get a lot easier to realize what it is you actually want to spend your time doing. Being open and honest with yourself is difficult at first, but just do it. Be your own. Sometimes I say being your own worst enemy is hard because we're so harsh on ourselves. But when it comes to this, don't hold back. If you hate grocery shopping and you have to do it, that's one thing. You have to feed yourself and feed your family. However, if someone says, hey, can you come help me do this? And you absolutely cannot stand doing that thing. It's like nails on a chalkboard for you. Just stop saying yes to it. Be brutally honest with yourself. Do I like this? Yes. Do I like this? Absolutely not. Forget saying, oh, well, I don't really like doing that, but it might hurt someone's feelings if I say no to it in the future. Forget that part of it. Just be honest with yourself. So that's what I want you to do. I want to encourage you to look at what you want to spend your time on. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy or grandiose. You don't have to go hike Mount Everest or complete the entire Appalachian Trail or build a boat in your basement. It can simply be you want more time to read. You want more time to walk. You want more time to spend with your kids and play board games and cards. You want more time to start a podcast or listen to a podcast or whatever it is you enjoy doing. It can be as grandiose as you want to write a novel and fly a plane and parachute into the Swiss Alps, or it can simply be that you want more time to work out and feel happier and healthier with yourself, with your body and your mind. Everything in between is also okay. So that's what I'll leave you with. Analyze, balance, and control, and be really mindful that your time is precious and what the things you want to do you should make time for those things. You should have time to do the things you want to do. Quite simply, quite plainly. Thank you very much for listening. I'm wishing you all the best. Take a look at what you want to spend your time on. I hope things go so well for you. Take care, and thank you, as always, for listening. Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.